Hi guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we'll be learning how to make Christmas cap. If this is your first time visiting my channel, do well to subscribe. Thank you. Of course, you can agree with me, Christmas is a period to show love. It's a period to show kindness. You can as well make this cap and give to those who cannot afford it. So in making this cap, you will need the following items. You will need your pattern paper, of course, to cut your pattern. You need your pair of scissors. You will need your ruler. You will need measuring tape. You will need hand stitching needle. Okay. You will also need your fur material. You will need it in white. I like my fur to be hairy. I like my cap to be hairy. So of course I bought a hairy fur for this. Okay. So you will also need a red fur material. Of course, Christmas color is red and white. Ooh la la, this red is so cool. Now let's set these items aside and then get down with cutting our pattern piece. So guys, before we cut our pattern, we need to note the particular size we want to make. Now if you're making for a male, you should have 13 inches wide by 18 inches long. If you're making for a female, it's 11 inches wide by 15 inches long. If you're making for a kid, it's 9 inches wide by 12 inches long. So right now I'm making for a male, so I am taking it 13 inches wide by 18 inches long. Okay, so I've cut a rectangle from this. Now from the short end, which is 13 inches, we'll be getting the midpoint. We'll get the midpoint on both of the short end. So we'll now say 13 inches divided by 2, we'll be having 6.5 inches. Alternatively, you can fold it into two equal parts to get the midpoint. Then make a little notch at the midpoint of the pattern piece. Okay, so I'm going to take my ruler from one angle this way. I'm going to mark. I'm going to place the ruler at the one side of the 13 inches and then at the end of the 13 inches and connect this to the angle. Now I will repeat the same on this other side. I put at this angle, this way, and then connect it. This is what I have. I've marked these two this way from the angle. This is from the angle. From here to here and from here to here. Now I have a perfect triangle. So I'm going to trim this out. Okay, so I have this perfectly cut out. Okay guys, so the next thing to cut now is the circumference. Now look at it. This is 13 inches. Okay, of course, what we'll cut here was 13 inches by 18 inches. Okay, so and when we are cutting the material, it's going to be in fold. Okay, it's going to be in fold, so we'll be needing 30 inches to round this. Okay, so what I did was pick another separate pattern paper and measure 13 inches long by 5.5 inch. Okay, by 5.5 inches. Okay, so because we are going to fold this into two by the time we are done sewing. Now if you want the white areas of your cap to be, you may need to cut 6 inches so that by the time you're done sewing, you'll be having 3 inches. Okay, so I'm going to set this aside and then start tracing my material. I'm going to fold this into two this way. So I've folded it. Now I will take my pattern pieces. I'll take my pattern piece. I'm going to cut this on red. So I'll place it this way. Now I'm going to mark through it. I'm going to mark. Now I'm going to cut this. And when I'm cutting, I'll be allowing a 1/4 inch sewing allowance. Now, if your material is the type that frays, you may need to allow 1/2 inch sewing allowance, okay? So I'm taking this off right now. Okay, so now we've cut this. I won't want this to scatter. Look at it. I won't want it to scatter. I'm going to keep it like this and take it to my sewing machine thread. But first I will need to clip it. So I'm going to take my clip, then clip it around so that it doesn't move. Okay. So I'm taking my clip. I'm going to use the tiny clips right now. I'm going to clip them around. I'm going to take this to the sewing machine and sew this way and this way. I don't have to sew this way. Of course, this is open. So let's get to the sewing machine and sew this. We'll be right back. Okay guys, we are done stitching this from this point to this point and from this point to this point. This is what we have. Of course, this is the wrong side of it. I'm going to turn it inside out. This way. Inside out, you have to use an object to pull this point out. Okay, if it's not closed, don't worry yourself, we will close it. This is it. Okay, so we are going to set this aside now and take the white foam material, then use the second pattern pieces, that is the 5 inches wide by 13 inches long pattern piece. Place it on it, then press it around and then cut it out. So this is what I have. Now we'll fold this into 2 equal parts by bringing the 2 short ends together with the right side facing each other. Then clip to hold in place and stitch at 1/4 sewing allowance. Then turn it inside out. Fold it by bringing the raw edges together. Clip to hold in place again and top stitch around the clipped raw edges with 1/4 sewing allowance. I'm done stitching around. I'm sure you can see my stitches. I have to use red so that it will be more visible. Now this is it. I'm going to take this point. This is the place we had our initial stitches. That's where we join the panel together. And then this. I'm going to take this point. I'm going to get the midpoint. Of course, this point is the first midpoint, and then I'll put it this way. Excuse me. I'll put it this way and then get the midpoint here. So I have a notch here now. Now this midpoint will be with one of these midpoints and then this with the other side. So I'm going to clip this way right side touching each other. So this is how it look like when we're clipped. Okay, so we'll take to the sewing machine and sew the clip edges. We'll sew all the clip edges. Okay guys, so I've started my stitching from this point. Okay, then I'm going to stitch it all around. Keep stitching and then take to the sewing machine and sew it around. While you're stitching, make sure you're getting the two together, and then don't forget you're stitching at 1/4 inch sewing allowance. Okay guys, this is it, and last we'll have it. If this is much, you can trim it. You can just go ahead and trim some areas. It's this way because this is a hairy forearm. So I'm going to turn it inside out. So see what we got here. Ooh, la, la. Our Christmas cap is almost ready. So we are going to put the ball here. Let me show you how to make the ball. I'm going to set this aside now. I'm going to take this. This is about 4 inches, 4 by 4 inches. Okay, it's 4 by 4 inches. I'll place it on the material this way, and then I will mark around. And then I cut it out. At this time, I will use my hand stitching needle to stitch around the circle. I will try as much as I can to gap the stitches. If it's gapped, it's easier to pull, so you don't need a tight stitch on this. You need to try as much as you can to gap the stitches. I will keep sewing it until I've gotten to where I started from. So this is what I've made. So I'm going to take this. Don't worry if you don't have this. You can use pieces of foam, pieces of cloth, pieces of anything around you to put in. Okay? If you don't have this fiber, there is no need to worry. There is no need to worry. I'm going to put this in and then draw it together this way. So now I have this ball. So we'll do it this way. Draw it, then tie it. I'm using these two to tie it. Make sure it's well tied. I'll tie it again to then I can cut this off. Now I will take this the way it is, take this point and sew it around. I'm sewing this around here. When I sew one here, I will sew one on this one this way. I will sew here again. Then I will sew here. So I'll keep sewing it until it's firm enough. Okay, so I'm done sewing it around. I have this now. Instead of pulling it down, I want to tie it again at this point. Tie it. Okay, so trim off the thread, the excess thread, and yes, our Christmas cap is ready.